Good morning. On behalf of the Alliance of Women in Workers' Compensation, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today's webinar is entitled Elevate Together. This fireside chat with industry leaders was pre-recorded during the National Work Comp Conference in October of 2022 and is being broadcast today, December 15th, 2022. Before we get started, I would like to thank our 2022 corporate sponsors for their support on hosting events such as this. They support us not because they want their logos up on a screen, but because they support the cause, which is to effect positive change in workers' compensation through networking, supporting, mentoring, and collaboration. The Alliance is inclusive of all professionals in workers' compensation, regardless of career stage, with the belief that we can all learn from and support each other. Even though this is our last virtual event of 2022, all past events are available on our website. Be sure to check out any events you missed, want to rewatch, or want to share with friends. Our theme this year was Acknowledge, Adjust, and Advance. Each quarter, our webinars and events centered on a mini theme. This quarter, we focus our topics around Elevate Together, culminating in today's session. I'm excited to announce that next year's theme is Together Towards Tomorrow. Stay tuned for more information regarding content for virtual and in-person events coming soon. The Alliance has grown so much this year as we launch several new chapters. Please be sure to connect with your local ambassador for all upcoming events. Change is preceded by trust. It is through acceptance and inclusion that trust will be formed and positive impact will occur. The Alliance is committed to creating a safe space in the workers' compensation industry for women of diverse backgrounds and experiences through a shared culture that integrates various perspectives. This is who we are and who we will be. The time to do better and be better is now. The Alliance understands that diversity is a journey and will take time to make meaningful changes for our organization, its followers, and its supporters. We will be intentional in making progress along our key pillars of change. Turning to today's webinar, today we will hear a fireside chat with industry leaders moderated by former keynote speakers Lauren Jones and Anna Frazzetto. The session is designed to show what women supporting women really means in action. Hear stories on how this has positively impacted our panelists' success, the lessons they've learned, and to explain how their mindset has transformed throughout their careers. Our panelists will come with practical strategies that we can all take back with us after this session. Today's panelists include Suzanne Emmett, Senior Vice President of Claims from Eastern Alliance Insurance Group, Kathy Gillia, Chief Clinical Solutions Officer from Paradigm, Alicia Krempetz, Vice President, Strategy and Innovation from Concentra, and Sandra Sukas, Nurse Manager of Lowe's Companies. Although this is a pre-recorded session, please feel free to share your comments and questions with the attendees throughout the Zoom chat feature on your screen. We love to see our followers engaged. Thank you for the time you are spending with us today, and we truly hope you enjoy this webinar.
Ignore the fact that I have to get my phone right here.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. Oh my goodness, this is such a cool little venue, and such a cool little area for us to have a cool conversation.
Yes, so I'm not being disrespectful by having my cell phone, but I have the questions on the cell phone. So that's what I'm doing. But why don't we start by each of you introducing yourselves, name, obviously, location, and why you're excited about being here today. Would you like to start? Yeah.
Sure, I can kick it off. Testing. I don't think the mic's on yet. There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Gallia. I am the Chief Clinical Solutions Officer with Paradigm. And in my role, myself, my team, and the company are focused on helping people who have suffered complex and catastrophic injuries, help them to restore their life and return to function. And I live in southern New Jersey. I'm a nurse by background. I have been in the industry about 20 years. I've been with the Alliance 5 years. Although this is my first time speaking on a panel on behalf of the Alliance, so very, very excited to do that. Thank you for having me.
So nice to have you here.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Emmett. I'm the Senior Vice President of Claims and Medical Care Management for Eastern Alliance Insurance Group. We are a monoline workers' comp carrier based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I've been with Eastern For 25 years, we were a startup 25 years ago. So 3 of us over the Transcending Flesh Tattoo Parlor in downtown Lancaster claimed that we were an insurance company and no one was going to dissuade us from that notion. So 25 years later, here we are. I'm really excited to be part of this panel and appreciate being invited, because this is a conversation that we can never stop having about how to help and support one another, how to help boost the confidence of other women. I would think that any of us who could sit here and claim any measure of success in our careers would have to look around and see that there were people who were there for us to help build our confidence and guide us along the way, and we owe that to others as well. So very happy to be part of this conversation.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Alicia. Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I am Sandy Sakis. I am the nurse manager at Lowe's Corporate in Mooresville. I live in North Carolina, and I have been overseeing the med management program since 2014, when we took in-house our med management program. And this, I have been involved with the Alliance of Women in our Charlotte location. They offer speakers, resources, group of women that we get together and talk. And when you say elevate, it elevates because you feel so good having conversations with people in the industry that you can freely talk to. So this has been an opportunity to reflect on career and what works, and hopefully can share some of those experiences with you.
Excellent.
Hi, everybody. Mic working?
Yeah.
Perfect. My name is Alicia Crumpets. I am currently the Vice President of Strategy and Innovation for Concentra, and I've been with the organization 23 years, same amount of time I've been in the industry. And while this is not my first career path, definitely where I've called home for quite a long time. And so maybe for purposes of today's conversation, what's interesting is I've carried a variety of different roles in the organization. And actually 4 of the 7, I built a business plan, presented to leadership, and they approved it. So it's been a great journey from collaborating with partners and customers along the way. Was part of the team who created and launched telemedicine, and now I get to be a part of the product and innovation team, where we're creating what next as it relates to mostly technology and integration in the industry to really focus on elevating patient care. So I would say I'm incredibly honored to be here. First time I've spoken on behalf of Alliance. I think it's amazing that the Alliance creates this space for women to come together, and really grateful that they brought the experts in. And I will tell you, I told Jennifer just last week that reading this book just in the past 3 weeks has made me get so much more intentional listening to all the different stories, or reading the different stories of the women, and what do I want my story to be? So really appreciate what the 2 of you have done as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
So why don't we get started with starting to ask some of the questions. So the first question that I have here, Alicia, maybe you can tackle this one, is what are some of the behaviors that can get in the way for women? We can definitely reference the book, right? Together, I mean, we got a lot of examples in there, but share from your perspective.
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, this one hit home for me when I read it. And when I think about behaviors, first I'll say, we think about, she's overbearing, or she's bossy, or she talks too much and tells too many stories, versus getting to the point. And I see somebody nodding over there. And I'll tell you, what I think gets in the way of women is a behavior that's completely silent. We don't hear it, we don't see it. It's because it's our thoughts. And it is those negative thoughts that undermine our confidence. It's that I'm not good enough, and I'm not smart enough. I only have 7 out of those 10 skills, so I'm not going to try. Or I need to do more research. Or gosh, she's so much more confident. And it's those thoughts that drive that fear, that completely undermine our confidence, that really impact how we show up. And I said at the beginning, it's something that hits home with me. Back in early 2021, I hired an executive coach because I wanted to work on my behavior that gets in my way. And mine is I need to be more clear, more succinct in how I communicate. And so I just told her, I was like, let's do it. You just tell me, what do I need to do to fix it? And she studies neuroscience, and she actually unpacked the why, and we dug in. And my struggle is I often think I'm not smart enough. And so when that happens, total amygdala hijack just kicks in my brain. And I can literally, I don't know if any of you experience this, I can see words spinning in my head. I'm trying to grasp for the right ones. And so I do think that there is a skill to be had that you can work on, and that's something we worked on as well. But if you can dive in and really unpack, like, where is this coming from and the why, and what's that thought that you're telling yourself? And by the way, was it Vicky? It was the evil DJ? What's Leslie? Yes. Right. The evil DJ.
I'm the shitty committee.
Right?
Yes.
Playing that song over and over. If you can unpack that and figure that out and get ahead of it and turn it into white noise. It may always be there, but it's white noise versus that loud voice that you hear. I think that's when you can really start growing and developing and overcoming and be your best self.
You said something there that I think is really insightful. So first, you hired a coach. It's one of the best things I ever did. It doesn't have to be something that breaks the bank. As a matter of fact, we talk about creating your own advisory board, people that are going to be really honest with you and tell you, what behavior might be getting in your way. These two are like, yeah, I told her what was up. But creating that advisory board or hiring a coach, investing in yourself, more often than not, we don't necessarily set aside funds for our own development, right? We are developing our subordinates or our department or whatever, and we don't necessarily take some of that for ourselves. So I think that's a huge, it's a humbling thing. It's a very humbling thing. How did that go at first? I'd be curious.
Well, I would say that, so I worked with her for 6 months. And it was great. And I mean, it catches me, but I will tell you that it made such a big difference because it is the white noise. I mean, every once in a while it rears its ugly head, but it made a tremendous difference.
See, so sometimes I think that the interesting point about this is sometimes it's, what you say, but how you say it, right? So the focus is on how you're saying something versus what you're really saying. And I think from a management perspective is learning the fact that as we have more diverse teams, everybody communicates differently. And to be sensitive to not everybody is going to be able to communicate black and white, super clear, that there might have to be a roundabout way to get to the message. Suzanne, I'd like to get your perspective.
Yeah, so just following up on that, and as I looked at these questions and thought about the discussion we were going to have, the word that kept coming up in all of my thoughts was was confidence, right? It's what is it, and how do we get it, and how do we exhibit it? And so I think, the behaviors that get in the way, failure to speak up, right? Not sharing our opinion, not asking questions, not voicing our opinion. And I think that's rooted in a fear of being judged. All of those things get in the way because they prevent us. If we don't find our voice and we're not brave enough or have enough confidence to ask a question if we need to, then it prevents us from finding ourselves, from finding our voice, from experiencing, why am I here? Why am I doing this? So I think that's really important. And I read something one time, and I'll share it with you because it helped me, and it was talking about confidence and what is it, right? And it said that confidence isn't, they're gonna love me, right? That's not confidence. Confidence is, They might not love me, but I'm going to be okay anyway. It's knowing that they may not love me or my opinions, but I'll learn something from their feedback if they don't, and I'll survive, and I'll find who I am by being okay with speaking up. So I think that that's part of the key of finding confidence and overcoming some of those behaviors. I can't tell you how many times I know somebody sitting in the room has a really good idea, and I know they do, and yet they can't bring themselves to speak up in the meeting, and we've got to figure out how to help each other do that.
So with that example, that's a great example as far as if you know somebody is in a room that has a great idea, but they're afraid to speak up. One thing that I've done is if it's too scary to call them out, then to have the conversation with them before the meeting saying, hey, I know you had, some ideas that you wanted to share with this. Are you okay if I tee it up and then maybe you can add to it? And sometimes that gives them the launch pad where then they feel like the stage has been set and then they can actually, respond to that.
So let's talk about, I have a question for, Suzanne, I want to hear from you, but I want to hear from everyone here at the table. Whose support was key to your success today, either throughout your life or in a particular moment? I know you're passionate about this one, but I'd throw it out to the other ladies too.
Yeah. I am, and I'd love to start. It's my work friends. It's those women mostly, although there have been a smattering of men in there over the years. But, when I was considering leaving my very comfy middle management job at a big insurance company to go to the tattoo parlor and start an insurance company, it was my work friends who convinced me that they had confidence in me and that I could do this, and that therefore I should have confidence in myself. And through the years, getting the company built and up and running, it's those women who I feel like I would die without, who are with me every day. We have been through personal crises together and supported one another through that. We've celebrated our brightest days, and we've gone through our darkest hours together. When you have just that kind of love among people that you're spending your time working with, it's true, unadulterated love and respect for each other. You can be yourself, and you can learn and live that confidence, because they are going to tell you if what you're saying is completely stupid, or they will say, yeah, you need,
like it or not.
yeah, you need to run with that, because that's got some legs, right? And that's invaluable to me. And I truly, families are great. They're, you could do it, rah, rah. But those friends, they know you at work. They know everything about you. And it's just, it's the best thing ever.
We call it our hype squad. So find your hype squad, because I think I really never had that growing up. I did a lot of moving. And so, I was kind of like just kind of like a lone wolf, I guess. That's a good way to put it. But now I've got my hype squad.
Exactly.
Right?
We do.
And you're right. It is. There's nothing better than that. It's such a great feeling. Let's go back. What I want to ask Kathy. So, what was the most important decision you made in your professional life that sort of determined that career trajectory?
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
There have been several. I think as I look back on my career, I've probably had 3 pivotal moves in my lifetime thus far, and a whole bunch of smaller and lateral moves along the way. But the very first move that I made that I think really set the tone for roles 2 and 3 were, as I said in my intro, I'm a nurse by background, And a while ago, over 20 years ago, I changed paths and I left the clinical setting in a hospital and I went into the world of business. And I did it, honestly, out of necessity in some ways, because I had children at the time who were very young. It afforded me a position that was so flexible. I could be there, to put them on the bus, take them off, and set my own schedule. And at the time, I felt guilty because I was leaving, providing hands-on care. But in hindsight, it allowed me to actually help more, in a way through a managed care space and impact more lives. So that one move to leave the clinical setting, to learn the world of insurance and business, set the tones for roles 2 and 3. And just briefly, role 2 was for a Fortune 500. I think I grew up there. I cut my teeth. I learned how to be a leader. Role 3 is my role today. Each one had increasing responsibility and was scary to make that leap and leave the safety and comfort of a role that I was good at to try something new with broader responsibility. And it was a lot of self-reflection. It had to feel right. I had to jive and align with the mission of the new company and the people. But the one thing that I thought when I was looking back on all 3 positions is for none of those positions did I apply through, a position online. Every single one of those roles was through connections, sponsors, mentors, people that I knew in the industry that said, hey, Kathy, I know you, I know this role, you are a good fit for this, you should explore this. So you cannot underestimate the power of connectivity and network and sponsors, and if you're given the opportunity, when in doubt, go for it.
Yes. When in doubt, say yes. I think that's a huge one because, look, it's all going to be uncomfortable. It's all going to be scary. You might as well just jump in the cold water and try. And I say that having started I was terrified starting my own company. My God, with no benefits. You think about all those rational, practical things. There's a million things that go through your head. How do you overcome that fear and just execute and just go and just say yes? And therein lies, it's all of these are compounding conversations when we look at imposter syndrome, maximizing your network. You got to have confidence to maximize your network. You got to have confidence to get past imposter syndrome. So and I think part of that is saying yes, even when you want to say no. So it's a brilliant one.
Yeah, so I think to kind of move the conversation along, Sandy, I'd like for you to be able to chime in regards to that question, but also maybe if you could spend a little bit of time talking about how you went about finding mentors throughout this process.
I think Kathy myself comes from a medical background, nursing, and I did move from the clinical into the business end as well as Kathy. And the experience, though, I have to say, when you talk about what's your career that got you where you wanted to go, is I think back, and it still sticks with me, that can you have it all? And so when I moved into the business world and medical, I was at Nationwide and did medical reviews for auto liability. Didn't have a clue what a claim was, didn't have a clue what people sued each other, didn't even have an understanding of how people connected the hip bone to the knee and said it was all related to an incident. It was a whole different world. But at the same time, as I got to better, I learned. I had people who helped me, both male and female in the claims world. I got better at knowing that and thought I can share more of my knowledge. If I got to a different type of job, I could really influence more people, help more people. But that's when I realized, when I looked at those jobs, that they needed a commitment for someone who could travel, someone who had to probably do more than 9 to 5, and had to have a commitment that probably couldn't do at that time because I had small children, a traveling husband, didn't have family. And so I had to step back and think about what I needed to do for my career at that point in time, and I couldn't do both, the family and the career. So step back, and that was at the point in time that I thought, I now have to motivate myself to figure out how I can develop in the levels and jobs that I have to get where I want to go. And so every job, every position that I took from there, I took everything I could learn and branched out to other people, connected with people, understood finance, HR, management styles, and learned from all of those people I worked with in those jobs, so that when I was able to have it all, and my children were stable, my family was stable, I could then look for those jobs that I knew I could provide that information, knowledge that I had, even more so than when I first thought of going in that way. And so I feel like that taking a step back, that really helped me in my career to recognize and accept that everything doesn't happen right then. But you have experience and you will be able to use it down the road and you will get where you want. So it may not be a straight line for your career. There may be detours, but you can do it. It's just a matter of when it works for you, and then when it does, it's the best thing. So getting to your destination is what you have to think about, how you're going to get in. And I'm glad I made the decision I did, and I think that it's better that I was able to put the effort and the attention to my job when I could do it and make a difference for the company, other people, develop people for me. And I see that for people who work for me now, they struggle with, what am I going to do? How am I going to get my career? Where am I going to go? And so you have to think about that, and there's nothing wrong with stepping back and then moving forward when you can.
Taking a step back to take 2 steps forward. And I think we look at, we talk CV, curriculum vitae. It's called course of life. It's not it's my course of life. That's my piece of paper, right? But we get so caught up in your career trajectory, and it's got to be one way, and it goes like this. It doesn't. It's a scribble pad. And that's okay. Comparison is the thief of joy. You've heard that saying before. And if you're comparing your career trajectory to somebody else's, that's problematic. Therein lies where we crush confidence. Right.
But that's where I think the power of mentorship
Exactly.
actually helps.
And very true. And think about that. And it's really sometimes unconscious mentoring. So I think in your positions and your jobs, you really don't, and for myself, I didn't really have a mentor that I went to all the time or talked to, but I think about all the unconscious mentors I've had during my career that really provided support, information, encouragement, and to look back and think that they were all mentors to me. In fact, we're all mentors, I think. Every one of us is a mentor to someone. We maybe don't think about it that way or realize it, but we really do make a difference, that some things, that one thing you say to people really have a ripple effect down the road. And you have to always believe that you're always mentoring somebody, no matter with your knowledge, your compassion, with your being a sounding board for them. So there are those that are mentors that you identify continuous, and then there are those that are out there every single day in your job. And I think Suzanne mentioned that too, that it could be your family, a friend, a coworker, it could be your children that provide that mentoring for you to move ahead and feel confident in what you're doing. And so I think there's a conscious and an unconscious mentor in the business world for females too.
Oh, absolutely. The power of mentorship, and again, one thing that we often talk about is that a mentor, it could be that you want to learn from the person to the left or to the right of you, or somebody who might be ahead of you from an organizational chart perspective, or it might be someone that reports into you because you admire a certain characteristic or a certain skill that they have. But that's the beauty of mentorship. I know my career, I started off, I was a programmer, I was a developer, then I went into disaster recovery, then I went into sales, but it was all because of mentors in my life that actually said, you have this talent, you haven't explored this yet, right? And kind of guiding you in that right direction. I wanted to make sure that, Alicia, we had a chance to talk about what are some of the behaviors that can get in the way Oh, actually, we did talk about that. That was the first question.
Yes.
Thanks, Lauren.
No, I'm sorry. No. So tell us what's still missing in creating an equal playing field. I want to hear from Alicia on this one.
Okay.
So from your own perspective, tell us what's still missing in creating an equal playing field for women and men in the workplace, and why this is a goal we're striving for.
Okay. Okay, so 2 questions there.
We give you all the hard ones.
Okay, so first, when I think there's a 3 opportunities that I thought of, what's missing in creating an equal playing field. And first, I'd say basic structures. It is at home and it's at work, so it's childcare support, right? It's home duties. It's things that often fall on women more often to own and manage. And then at work, I think what an opportunity is to create more equal playing field would be flexible work hours, even extended parental leave policies for both men and women, because that absolutely will help women. The second thing is, I think it's, so I call it relationship and connection access, because I think of 2 parts to this. So first, it's having that support circle. You know, that's been mentioned how many times today, and it's the whole, premise of the book. Why we're together. So having that group of people that support you, but I also think that there's an opportunity to expand connection access and the places. So what I mean by that is historically, as an example, the golf course, playing golf, it's been a wonderful place to build connection and relationship over the years. Sometimes it's where some of the biggest business deals are done, but historically it's been more inclusive of men versus women. So how do we find new ways and new places to give that opportunity to come together, and that, where we can really access connection. So the last thing, and it ties into what we were just talking about, I think, is that whole mentorship, sponsorship, and clearly there's a lack of female and even male men supporting female development. And here's the key, I think you brought this up, it can happen formally. We always think about it that way, like how do I go find this person and talk to them? But it almost happens more often informally. And you think about somebody engaging with somebody that they're connected with or more familiar, and you get that little slow drip of advice along the way. If potentially it's a different gender or even a different race, maybe there's not that connection they have, so they're not as comfortable offering up that informal advice. And I think that slow drip of engagement and advice along the way, it adds up, and that's what can increase the gap of growth and development. So I think, those are the 3 things I'd say that could be done to create an equal playing field. Why is it worth striving for? And so here's what I'd say. So most of us work in an organization. It could be 2 people, it could be thousands of people. And everybody wants to be successful. Personally, we want the organization to be successful, and it's a real symbiotic relationship. And I think there's a desire by people, every generation, just not the next generation, of wanting a culture that has greater empathy and compassion and connection. And those are often, traits that are found in women. Now, let me be clear. I have the most amazing male boss that's the most empathetic person I've ever met to everybody on the team. So I'm not saying it's only women, but those tend to be more often female traits. And so the last thing I'll say here is when you think about communal leadership, what it does is it creates, so you've got connection and communication, it starts creating trust. When Suzanne, your group that you spent together, and then that trust creates a place for that psychological safety. And when we feel safe, like that is when we start rising up and we're our best authentic self. And when we're our best authentic self, that's when we're most successful. And if we're all acting that way and rising up, everybody wins out of the deal. So, that's why it's worth striving for.
Well, and I love the fact that the conversation about work is changing. We're talking about mental health in the workplace. We're talking about acceptance. We're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are conversations that have not necessarily been had over the course, but You know, if there is a good outcome of COVID, I think it is some of these more meaningful conversations. We're looking at, 83% of job seekers, so I'll throw this one out there, are looking for flexibility. They're looking for acceptance. You know, Gen Zs want something, when we talk generational job seekers or employees, you know, what's important to a millennial is not going to be not as important to a Gen Z. Believe it or not, Gen Zs prefer a handshake. Millennials, they like texting, you know. So, but I think it's what you're talking about, inclusivity, right, and acceptance. And I love the fact that those types of descriptive words are coming into the workplace because it just hasn't been there. And I'd like to think women have a lot to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's part of having that diverse workforce, right? It's because now you're going to have not only gender diversity, but you're going to have cultural diversity, right? So therefore, it starts playing a role in the language and how we actually talk to each other. Sandy, you were going to say something.
When you were talking about females in the business and what we can do in the different generations, I wish I could do this, and I see it now, and I just applaud and just think it's fantastic. I have people who work for me, and they think nothing of going to a VP at finance or the VP of risk management and just go. It's like, okay, set up a meeting, talk with them. They want to talk about their career, what they can learn from them. And it's not even that they're looking for them to mentor them. They just want to hear from them. And so I see that more and more with females now, and that was something that I would never do in my career, just would never happen. But this, I think, is the change that's happening for females and the support. And the more you can encourage people to do that, it's just amazing to me. It really is.
That's fantastic. So I think to kind of like go to the last question that we have, actually, I wanted to, you keep doing this to me, Lauren. Let's get into some practical strategies we can all take back with us, right, after the conference. So parting thoughts as we kind of go around that we want to be able to share with the audience today and hopefully with our teams back at the office. Why don't we start with you, Kathy? Yes.
Sure. Happy to kick that off. So, practical strategies. I think one thing that I want to say, especially to leaders out there that feel that they, at the end of the day, are maybe run ragged or worn down a little bit. I think a practical strategy is to know your strengths, know your weaknesses, play to your strengths, improve upon your weaknesses, and accept that you can't always be all things to all people. And this sounds so elementary, but the fundamentals of getting up and walking every morning, getting outside, getting fresh air before you start your day. I know that sounds so simple, but that has been a lifesaver for me, especially last year during the pandemic. And I do it every day, and I tell my team to do it, and I practice what I preach, and I have my team sitting over there, and we do walking meetings. We will talk on our phone, we'll do our one-on-ones that way. And it's something so simple, but it grounds you in the morning, and it allows you to deal with whatever life is going to throw at you throughout the rest of the day. So that's my tip.
Move your body, change your mind.
Yep.
I love it.
Love that. Suzanne?
So this one coming from me may seem obvious, and it's the idea of don't be afraid to take up space, literally and figuratively, right? There are studies that show that men are not afraid to take up space, right? We're going to sit down on the plane like this. We're going to spread our stuff out all over the meeting table, right? Right?
We have acknowledgement.
Right?
We have acknowledgement, yes.
And it's literal and it's figurative. It's and there are studies that show when people are coming into a room, women will naturally tend to scoot together, create more space for others, right? Whereas men will stand pat right where they are. This is my space, and I'm not giving it up. So if you make yourself small physically or make yourself small by not giving yourself a voice, you make yourself invisible. So don't be afraid to take up space. And if you've ever read Amy Cuddy's book, Presence, or seen her TED Talk, or if you're a fan of Ted Lasso and dear Rebecca, right?
Yeah.
Let's invade France, right? Don't be afraid to make yourself big. Big literally, big figuratively. Take up your space, claim your space.
There's a fantastic book by Marshall Goldsmith and Hallie Helgeson called How Women Rise. That practice is called diminishing. So I diminish of a woman, making all the room for somebody else. It's a fantastic book if you haven't read it. That's spot on.
That's great.
Okay, but hang on, do men hold each other like that?
Like this?
Right?
Probably not.
Do you do that?
Do you hug your neighbor? He's regretting
He's
that he's
regretting
sitting in
that
the
he-
front.
Yeah. Yes.
Sandy.
I think just supporting there, we all have a lot of experience here out there, but there are also people that we manage and are coming up, and they have great ideas. And I think we have to remember that sometimes there are other ways to do things and get to the same place. And it doesn't have to be the way we've always learned it has to be or how we did it. And it truly is nice to take what we know and someone take it in a different direction and get to the same end that you need. And that's someone who may have less experience than me, which is great. To give them the opportunity to share that and do it and try it. Maybe it fails, maybe it doesn't, but give them the opportunity because they feel so good when you're able to support them and let them do that. And again, they learn from something they may fail in, and we learn if it's successful that we can share with the rest of our team. So,
Excellent. Alicia,
Fantastic.
parting words.
Okay. I have 3 quick things, and I'm actually glad that you gave us homework because my first one was get intentional now. And again, I'm so grateful. I would say if you walk out of this room, just act and do something. So thank you. But I would encourage you read this book, and mainly because, and not to just give you props, but I think what it did is, to your point, it is many, many women who gave their stories. Some will resonate more, some will resonate less. And what it informed me was, what do I want my story to be? So I'd encourage you to read it and say, what do I want my story to be? And then the second thing I would say is get power over the negative self-talk. Like, make it white noise, right? Versus that loud thing you listen to or the evil DJ. And then the last thing I would say is create your tribe. And again, it's what this book is all about. Find those people that lift you up. Find the people that elevate you. I mean, we've been isolated and separated for the past 2 years, and it's absolutely the breeding ground for fear and failure. And I'll tell you, it's when often your negative thoughts get a lot of energy. And when you have that tribe of people around you that remind you and empower you of your strengths, that is when you really step up and you're, as I say, you're your bold, best, brave self. And that's when you'll be most successful. So those are my parting
I
thoughts.
love that. So I have just 2 things to say because I know we're running out of time as we're closing here, but be the change, right? You all can be part of the change. You can all make a positive impact in your daily lives. You see something, say something, right? If you see something that's not going great at your office and somebody's not being treated fairly, say something. Let's prevent bullying because bullying takes place at work just like it does in the schoolyards. So prevent bullying. This is National Anti-Bullying Month, so let's prevent bullying from taking place in the workplace.
965 days of the pandemic. 965 days, to your point. Yeah. Takes 66 days on average to make a habit. Make supporting one another a habit.
Thank you.